Welcome to Pratidwani, where we try to humanize science. I'm your host, GV Pawan Kumar. It is my delight and pleasure to introduce today's guest on my podcast, uh, Snigdha Thakur. Snigdha is a senior faculty member at the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Bhopal. And Snigdha was one of the very important person who also has played a critical role in establishing the physics department there. And we have been actually friends and also colleagues for a long period of time, exchanging ideas. And also, I have learned a lot from fascinating work she does. Her research interest mainly is in the soft and the biological materials, which are driven out of equilibrium. She is a theoretical computational condensed matter physicist and has done some very fascinating work related to some emergent properties of colloids, which are either active by nature or driven by some external field. So, with this brief introduction, I welcome Snigdha onto the show.
Thank you, Pawan. Thank you for having me on your show. It's indeed my pleasure to talk to you and give some dhwani to Pratidhwani.
Oh, fantastic! And I eagerly look forward to your Dhwani, and same with all the other audience, I suppose. So, Sneha, tell us about first and the most important thing. How did you really get interested in science? What was your origins? Please tell us where were you born and your childhood days and other aspects of it.
So, my interest in science, more specifically on physics, just came without any motivation or anything as such. I flew, I just flew with the life, how it came to me, I just took
Mhm.
at that point, and then slowly it turned me to where I am right now. So it never, I mean, I've heard some of your podcasts where people said that they had some inclination towards certain part of physics and that's why they ended up doing that. I was a very normal person, did not have any specific motivation to do physics as such when I was in school. But I definitely wanted to do something in my life. Okay. So maybe, and then I took up the opportunities, whatever the best opportunity that I got at that point of time, I kept taking it. And then finally, I'm here in front of you talking about my journey. So yeah, that's how. I don't think there is specific thing that happened, specific moment that took me to science. It just happened to me. That's how I am here. Yeah.
So, where were you born? In which place? And
Yeah. So I was born in Patna, Bihar,
oh, oh,
but
nice.
I grew up mostly in not mostly entirely in Jamshedpur, which is also called Tata
Oh,
Nagar, uh,
Tata. Yes.
which is the steel city, basically Tata city. My father was working in Tata Steel. He was there as a supervisor there for a long time. So, and my entire family from the maternal side was in Tata Nagar. So I grew up entirely in Tata Nagar. Went to schooling. All my schooling is from Jamshedpur itself. Yeah, so
Nice,
that's
nice.
yeah. So though I'm originally from Bihar, and then now I am a Jharkhandi. You can say that.
Okay, nice, nice. So, was there any specific kind of part of your upbringing which already kind of helped you to incline towards science? How was it growing up in Jamshedpur and schooling, and also the environment at home? What kind of stuff were you doing during your childhood? The normal things. Yeah.
Yeah, so uh, you can imagine people from Bihar at 80s, right? That is when I was born, 1980.
Mm,
Conservative people, many a
mm,
times, if you look at from the present perspective,
yeah,
the
yeah.
thought process was very different. Thought process, especially towards the girls, were very different. In general, for the society, was very different. Though my parents had a different point of view, not entirely different, but they were more progressive than the
Mm,
rest of the society, and maybe that helped me a lot. So I think my mother is one of the person who really took some effort, and all of us, including me, so I have an elder sister and a younger brother. So my mother was very passionate about studies.
Mm-hmm.
She herself was a very bright student when she
Mm-hmm.
was going to school and college. But due to societal pressure, she was very keen in uh, becoming somebody, to have her own identity. She was one out of 10 siblings, right? And being a girl, they had to get her married, so she could not do what she wanted to do. But she was very particular that even as a girl child, we should not face the kind of issues that she faced. Issues in the sense of feeling, I mean, just get your dream, catch your dream is something that she always wanted to do, and she could not do that. So she wanted us to be independent. She wanted both me and my sister to be independent, and she helped us a lot during our school days, whatever she can, every day. In After coming to school from school, in the second half afternoon, she would sit with all of us, and she was our mathematics teacher all the way till 8 9 standard or something. And every day for 2 hours, we were bound to do mathematics. Okay. And she loved mathematics, right? And we were bound to do mathematics. So that's how I think we started coming towards this science, because I mean, people at that time really thought that if you want to succeed in life, you have to become either doctor or engineer, right? And engineering was something which was in blood in my maternal side. Out of my seven uncles, maybe five of them were engineers. So that's what we had to do. And for engineering, you have to be good in mathematics, which my mother was, and therefore she wanted us to be in mathematics. So that's how I think we got inclined towards academics, and specifically more towards science than arts. So that is how I think my inclination has happened towards science.
Fabulous, fabulous. I want to touch upon two aspects of it. One is, generally the influence of mothers uh, on children, especially in kind of academics, is very deep. In fact, I've also seen that I'm not very particularly specifying that only mothers focus on this, but but that kind of interaction, what you have uh, with your mother, has very deep, roots in the way you become a person in future.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And second point is also sometimes you also carry the interests of your mother.
Yeah.
It may not be only mother; it can be any part,
Yeah.
any of the
Who has
parent.
influenced you? Yeah.
Uh, but people who generally teach some particular subject to you at a very early stage, you tend
Yeah.
to carry that thought process. And
Absolutely.
has that been kind of your experience also generally?
Generally, yeah, absolutely. So, people who have, so of course, teachers impact you a lot during your school days. And as I said, my mother was one of the teacher for me, and she was there all the time for me. So she has a great impact on my life till schooling,
Mm,
till class 10th. That's because till class 10th I was in a Hindi medium school, where she could understand the the jargons and all that very well. And after that, when I went to a CBSE board school, she could not understand, so she could not help. But till that point, she had a great influence on me academically. Of course, personally, mothers, fathers,
mm,
they always have influence, their own influence on all the kids. So there's a personal aspect which is completely different. But since you were talking about how I got interested in science and how I moved towards this path, was because I think the science was because of my mother, and of course from the societal stuff that you have to do science. That's where the future lies. And my overall family, which said that okay, you have to become an engineer, because that's the trend and that's how you become successful at that point of time. So that's how I started coming towards science, and then did not do engineering. But
mm.
yeah, I think I did whatever I could do best at that point of time. I did, and I'm quite happy at the position where I am right now. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, was there already some kind of inclination during your schooling where you were interested or getting interested in physics, or just generally you were good in mathematics, so you probably the interest evolved as a function of time, especially during the school days? How was your experience then?
In physics, you mean?
or any subject or
In general,
any
okay.
in
Okay,
general.
so as I said from the very beginning, I knew that I wanted to do something.
Mm,
I don't want to get married and
mm,
sit at home. I want to have my career that I wanted to have for sure. Now you need role models, right, to
mm,
take you to different sectors and all that. So when I was very small, I think maybe class 2 3 or something like that, my, or maybe slightly more than that, I don't remember, but I was small. That time Kiran Bedi was very famous, and she became the role model. I think at that time for many of the girls, she was one of the role model, and she was my role model. And in fact, right now also I appreciate her a lot
mm.
because of the courage that she had and
Correct.
all that. But she was my role model, and I wanted to become an IPS officer at that point of time. Okay, so IPS officer is what was there in my mind all the time. And then I was growing up in Tata Nagar, which is basically the Tata Steel. And then we
Mm,
have a lot of white collared job, big people, very nice looking people with nice dresses and all that. And my house was, I remember my house at that time was just in front of a gate of Tata Steel. Just it was a very posh office of Tata
mm,
Steel. Okay, not the really factory side. It was a posh
mm,
office in front of me, and I would see all the big cars coming in, and the people mostly men, of course, at that point of time, but suit and boot, and they look very nice to me at that point of time. So somehow from Kiran Bedi I shifted to some job in Tata Steel. So I don't know how, but this happened. So as I said, it was not something, I was not very focused to do that this is what I have to do, but I wanted to do something which is nice. So Tata
right.
Steel looked very good to me. And that started looking very good to me that as an option for a career. And then one of my yeah so I then I think maybe I was in 7 or 8 or something like that. One of my cousin, he got the job there, and he showed us the pictures and all that, and I got fascinated again. I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. And as usual, you have to do engineering to get into Tata Steel. That is what my perception was at that point of time. And later on, I saw some of my family members again who got into
Mm,
Tata Steel not by engineering, but after doing BSc in physics and doing some MTech and MTech in electronics or some other branch. I forgot which branch was it. So it came to my mind, okay, if not engineering, this is another way of getting into Tata Steel. So
okay.
that's
Okay.
how my journey towards science started. So I thought, okay, when I decided to do BSc, when I went to Banaras Hindu University to do BSc. So then I thought, okay, let me now think of an opportunity or a subject which will enable me to do MTech, from which I can go to again my dream job of getting into Tata Steel. So that's how, and physics seemed to be one of the option
Mm,
because that's where you can connect it to various stream. And I think that was one of the reason to get into physics. Though while so when I went to BHU at that time, there were options. So when I joined there, there was physics, chemistry, maths was the combination, and one can take any of them as your major depending on your choice at the third year. So when I started doing physics, chemistry, and maths in the first year was okay. I was still not sure which stream to take, which major to take. Second year was when I was sure that I'm not going to take maths because of somebody teaching groups and rings the way it was taught. I could not appreciate it at all, and I knew that I am not an abstract person. I cannot appreciate it, and therefore maths was out of question at that point of time. And it was between physics and chemistry that one had to
mm,
choose. Chemistry started somehow lucrating more because there was a teacher, Professor Sain Gupta, and she was fantastic teacher. I can't tell you how good she was. Any of these organic chemistry reactions, you can think of those aldol, condensation,
mm,
Canizaros, which I had only by hearted at 12th. Okay, I had no idea about how these reactions happen. And when she showed us the mechanism and everything, I was fascinated by chemistry. So I was almost sure that I'm going to take chemistry major, not really physics major. But then I came back again and then thought about my career options, and then maybe felt maybe now physics is better. If I do physics and then MTech, I have this option. So I that's how maybe I landed up doing physics than any other subject.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is actually something very important. You also mentioned about influence of a good teacher. In fact, that is something I consistently also observed. As so many people have at least few of them who would have really had a very deep kind of influence from somebody. And second point is, see, this aspect of looking at mathematics, because for sure, being an experimentalist, you would, or then a theoretician, you would already be actually, kind of doing a lot of mathematics in a different sense, which also means that you are able to now grasp some particular points which are deeply embedded in mathematics.
Correct.
And also, you have had influence from your mother, as you've been telling that your
Yeah.
mother actually played an important role
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
influencing it. So how and another crucial point, what you did mention is, these groups and rings. Whenever one studies, that is always an issue where people make it too abstract, and there's no physical connection which is given.
Not at
And
all.
I had very similar experience, but although I had some very good mathematics teachers too, because wherever I was studying, maths physics actually was on equal footing. We had to actually write equal number of papers. So at
Uh-huh.
the end of BSc, one could become even masters in
Math.
mathematics or something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I can totally see the point what you're saying, especially the groups and rings, the way it was taught, at least. I don't know how it's been done nowadays, is so abstract.
Uh,
It actually, that homomorphism, isomorphism, all those things
I
there was.
completely lost it at that point of time. So in BHU, the first year is out of these three, you take three courses from
Hmm,
each of
hmm.
the subjects. So each of them are equally weighted, right? And then you do that for 2 years, and in the third year you decide your honors. That's what it's
Honors,
called,
yeah.
right? And then groups and rings, definitely I remember as a course which took me away from mathematics, though I was a bit keen on doing mathematics in my first year. But then, and I forgot another course. There was one more course which was an
Hmm,
abstract course like that. So I think to do an abstract course in a good way, you need to have some sense also. You need to have
hmm.
some inbuilt quality also, and that doesn't come to everyone. Okay, so hats off to all the mathematician, abstract mathematician. I just can't do that. I don't have that aptitude. You require some aptitude to get through those abstractness of the
Abstract.
mathematics. So I have
Absolutely,
huge
absolutely.
respect for them.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah, in fact, same here, same here. Even I feel that that kind of thing has to not only happen from the student view, or from the teacher viewpoint, but also from the student viewpoint, because they should also see that seems to be something very, quite interesting and other things.
yeah,
So
yeah,
during this particular time, BHU also has very reputed physics department, and it has had a very rich history, both in terms of theoretical physics and also experimental physics, because
correct.
there's so many people who have not only graduated but also taught there and spent their careers. Could you please paint us a picture of your BHU days? How was it? How
The
was the transition from Jamshedpur to Varanasi?
BHU. Best days of my life, I would
Uh,
say. The BHU
nice.
days. Always, I think for anyone, the college days are the best days in your life. So I would say that those 5 years, BSc again and MSc both, I
Mm,
did both
mm,
from BHU. So those 5 years were the best years of my life, not only academically, but it also gave a lot of confidence, your personality building.
mm,
Everything happened during those 5 years because you are a kid, right? And in
mm,
12th standard, everything is done by your parents, mama, papa, for everything they are there. And then suddenly you land up into a big university where nobody is bothered to see what you are doing, how you are doing. And I'm really, I really feel our IISER kids are very privileged that way.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
a small university, lesser number of people, everybody knows everyone, and they care. People, faculty members, they care for every other student. But BHU being so huge, right? Even in a single hostel, so many students, a warden will come once in a while, may not come. Nobody really uh, can care about students. Even if they want to, they will not be able to, because of the size of the overall campus. So we were all on our own, completely on our own. And then that's when you realize that you have to make friends. You need a support system, and you start making the support system, and you start seeing who all are the people from your town, from your locality, or from your state. That's how the building starts, right? And then it goes on to every other states and every other this thing. So I started with some close friends. They are still my very close friends. College friends can will always be your friends.
Always.
That's it is. Right. So then he started. Yeah. So these friendship started, and then you start going to the college, the classes. Again, in the classes, you are on your own, right? Attendance will be there, but and there is some percentage of attendance which is required. But as a whole, it was a big transition for me. Not only in terms of the places, in terms of freedom, in terms of this academically also, because in class till class 10th, as I said, I was in a Hindi medium school.
Hmm,
Then,
hmm,
and I was doing very well in that school. Okay. And then in 12th standard, 11th, 12th, I came to a CBSE school, which was a complete English medium. And a huge transition had happened for me. I could not speak a single line of English at that point of time. And everything that I heard, I had read till that point was even the terminologies were in Hindi, right? So velocity was
hmm,
vague,
hmm,
momentum was some vague, right? And suddenly everything changes for you, right? And then the overall school, you see people who are completely different from you.
hmm.
And English was a craze at that time. If you know English, you are good. If you don't know English, you are not good. That's how the portrayed picture was
Yeah.
portrayed at that point of time. I don't know at other places how it happened, but definitely there it was portrayed like that. So it gives you a dip in your thinking process. You feel, I don't know. We didn't have a depression word at that point of time,
Hmm,
but I'm
hmm.
sure I was depressed.
No, no. In fact, it's actually at the younger age. This is a very important point what you're mentioning, Snigdha. Uh, at a very young age, change in your local environment has a very drastic effect. Even
Absolutely.
I have seen in many examples, because if you change your world, it's essentially you're changing your world, right? Especially
Yeah,
for younger people, the
yeah,
friends and others are so important.
yeah.
No, you can relate that to even smaller kids, and it's actually such an important part of their lives. And
Absolutely.
I concur to the point what you're mentioning. Yeah, please proceed. Please proceed.
Yes, yeah. So
Mm,
yeah, I mean that's how. So that was a dip in the school life,
mm,
where from which BHU somehow brought me up again. So
mm,
after going to BHU again, getting that freedom, talking to people, going to the department, and then understanding what is happening. Because now in 2 years, I had picked up all the jargons. I could
mm,
converse.
mm,
I knew what I am doing. Before that, especially in class 11th, I had no clue what I'm doing. So that had and yeah. But after coming to BHU again, I knew what I'm doing. I knew the subject well. I started doing well in the classes again, and that gave me a lot of
mm.
confidence to come back
Confidence.
again to the academic. So I think that was especially the BSc part where the confidence was built up, and then MSc part is where it continued, and I think that had a huge impact on my career. Definitely, definitely.
Were there any specific topics during that time when you were doing your BSc or MSc which you found a little more interesting, especially uh, given that you are also exposed to quantum mechanics and other areas of research or areas of physics?
So I think that's where the role of teacher come into picture a lot, right? During your college time,
Hmm. Yeah.
especially, right? And if you have some teachers who can pursue you, or who can get you excited about certain subject, you automatically tend to go towards that
What's
those subjects, right? So in BHU, of course, as I said, during my second year, the chemistry teacher got me excited to go towards chemistry, but then I had this job perspective in my mind, and then I went to physics. And when I went to physics, of course, uh, I knew that there are some things where you need more abstractness. For example, the high energy type of courses,
mm, mm,
uh, that was not my cup of tea.
mm,
Right, that I realized during my MSc time and all that. That still during my MSc, you can say that I got to know about PhD only when I entered MSc. Before that, I had no clue what PhD was. Nobody in my family had done any PhD. Nobody in my family, and in fact, the perception as a whole at that point of time in the society where I grew up was like people who don't do anything will go for PhD. So that's
mm.
the kind of perception that I grew up with, and therefore I had no clue what PhD is.
Yeah,
During
yeah.
my MSc, then I got to know. At least I'm really glad that students nowadays are much more aware than what we were. And I was not really an aware student, let me tell you very frankly. I
Mm,
was a
mm.
very mild student who always lived in present. Okay, I
Mm.
have to read quantum mechanics, I have to read classical mechanics, and my goal was to read that and get good marks and understand that. So I was very not very what to say, I am not getting the correct word, but yeah, not very goal
Yeah.
oriented person that way.
Career
Okay,
oriented. Okay, okay. Yeah.
orientation was I have to do something. That's all my
Mm.
future orientation was. So now, when I took physics, then slowly it's like what you can do and what you can't do. That kind of stuff keeps coming, right? And then I knew that there's this high energy type of research is something which is not my cup of tea. I was not very excited also about because once you feel that this is something that you can't do, you don't get excited about it. Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
So, so then, yeah, then we had teachers in StatMech and classical and then there was a couple of teachers who were doing research in soft matter. So liquid crystal was
Mm,
one of the area which was where people were working on in BHU. So that is where I slowly understood that these are the research areas which people can go through. BHU's condensed matter department was a very strong department. Okay, there people were doing a lot of very good experiments, especially the experimental condensed matter department was a very good department. So these were the two choices I started to have in my mind to do during MSc. So again, during MSc also, I had not thought about doing PhD. Okay,
mhm, mhm,
I wanted to do an MSc and a project which will again make me more job oriented. Okay,
mm,
that was
mm,
my goal. Okay,
mm,
and that is where the two departments where the project I could have done that I figured out was maybe condensed matter and maybe electronics. Okay, so these were the two places where I thought, okay, this is where I should do my MSc project and make myself more sellable in the job market than to go to the research. Uh, and so as I said, where I am right now, I just flew with the flow, and a lot of failures also has contributed very positively in my
mm.
career. And it's not only a success story; it's failure stories are also hidden into these things. And maybe I will talk about the failure stories as well, because if there are students sitting there, they many of the students who come to me talk to me, I feel that many of these aspects that they are talking about, I also had faced at that point of time. And therefore, instead of getting depressed and thinking too much about it, do the best that you can do at that point of time, and things will come to you. That's my philosophy right now, has been throughout the life. So,
Fabulous, fabulous. We're going to actually expand on that part of it explicitly when we come to any stage. So the 2 points, what is very important, what you mentioned about, is of course going with whatever is actually now in the thought process. You take it, take it up as a challenge, and then you kind of look into that in slightly greater detail. And second aspect, of course, is the fact that anybody who has done uh, intellectual work for a reasonable time is always bound to have failures, right? Because there is no way that you can actually do anything without having not encountered any failure. In fact, one would be very surprised if somebody claims to have such a thing, and that becomes probably part of our not only learning but also somehow will shape our characters too, probably,
Correct.
right? Because how you come out of the rut. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about here, any kind of psychological rut. It might be just a technical and a intellectual rut, because
Yeah.
sometimes research is not something where you just sit down and get everything right.
No, nothing. It's
And
opposite.
yeah. So at this particular time, towards the end of your MSc, were there any specific influences which really tilted your mind towards becoming a researcher, or at least taking up PhD as next step? Was there
Okay.
any specific thing which you find very specifically you got influenced by?
So okay, so after MSc, what I knew that, or during my MSc, I understood that this is research is another career option that one can take, and
Hmm.
I got the truth also at that point of time that after doing MSc in Indian context, getting a job is something which
Hmm.
is not very realistic, especially from of course after I had friends who have had got jobs in industries after MSc, but they were like more from computer science background,
Hmm.
from statistics background. Those were the people, and of course some chemistry friends who had got jobs in pharma. But I got the reality of life at that point of time that after MSc, if you want to get the job,
Hmm.
it's not there, that there not much of job market in India unless you change the field.
Hmm.
And changing the field was something that was not there in my option at that point of time, because I want to do something.
Hmm.
Otherwise I would have to get married to someone, and which I did not wanted to do at that point of time. So I wanted to get myself engaged
Hmm.
and keep having some earning also, so that I don't have to go back and sit at home. And MSc is a good time for the girls to get married,
Yeah.
especially in that
Yeah.
locality of the country. I hope things have changed right now. But that was the time where if I would have gone home and if I would have sat at home for a year or even half a year, definitely I would have got a match and would have got married and would have been doing something else. so so I thought, okay, छोड़ो career job को गोली मारो. Let's see, the research is something which is coming to me, and so let's take that as an option and move forward.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's how I ended up doing research. So it's not a very fascinating story that way.
Hmm.
But I think this is a very common story that may
Yeah.
happen to many, many, many students in India. So that
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very, very, very common thing, as you mentioned. That also kind of frees up your mind, maybe a little bit. The pressure is reduced in that sense. In terms of the area, were you already making a choice? Like, were you
Yeah,
thinking about it? Yeah.
so when now that I knew that okay, I have to go to research, then I started thinking of the areas where I can go to. Now in the MSc, again, as I said, during my first year of MSc, only towards the end of second year I realized that okay, I'm going for research because career is not the option. But at the end of first year again, um, uh, I had to do some project, right? In MSc second year, some project had to be taken. So as I said, there were two options that I had in mind, was condensed matter and electronics. Again,
Mm,
having the job perspective in the mind, and I ended up doing electronics project during the MSc. But when it came to research, then that's where you need teachers, right? You need professors to talk to and guide you about what is right, what is wrong at this point of time. So I went to a couple of my teachers in BHU, and they were
mm,
very, very renowned. Professor Yashwant Singh,
mm,
Sri Singh. These are the people who I'm talked to at that point of time, and they they told me at that point. I see they also know the capacity of the student, right? They know what the student can do and what the student cannot do at that point of time. So they tried to tell me that, look, condensed matter is a place again where you can do a lot of stuff. Okay, and if even if you don't want to do and both experiment and theoretical condensed matter is something that is a choice for you, which you
Sure.
should be able to do. And depending on and again, there's one thing that they said is, more than the institute where you go to do the research, focus on the person with whom you want to do the research, right? And then I had couple of options at that point of time in my hand. IIT Madras was one of them. And then this faculty member, Professor Yashwant Singh, again, I went to
Hmm.
talk to, and then I said, "This is one place where I would like to go. IIT Madras is one of the place. What do you think? Should I do experiment or what should I do theory?" And that's
Hmm.
when he told me about Sunil, my supervisor's name.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
said, "Snigdha, don't worry about the institute and all that. I know Sunil is doing extremely good, and you have some aptitude in this
Hmm.
towards the theoretical condensed matter. You
Hmm.
should go and talk to him and see if he has vacancy or not." So before going to the for the interviews, before even finalizing anything, couple of names I had in my
Hmm.
mind about whom to approach for a PhD, and Sunil was one of them. And and that's how I got uh, basically aligned towards condensed matter, and more specifically towards the computational or theoretical condensed matter. So
Did you
that's
have a background in computation before joining
none,
Sunil?
none,
None?
none. so, so
Because
I,
what Sunil does is kind of computationally heavy, right?
complete computation, and that is what I do now.
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
so that story is again very very interesting story, the
Yeah,
PhD
we will
story.
come to that particular story because I really want to, get to know how you really, transformed yourself. Before that, tell us about the physical transition from Varanasi to Madras.
Indeed, super shocking transition, I would say. Yeah. So Varanasi had become a home basically in 5 years, right? And you had some really great friends, good friends, and you did not. I did not wanted to leave Varanasi, So I was homesick, or BHU sick, I can say at that point of time. After 12th, I was homesick, and
Yeah.
then after this, I was BHU sick, and then I come to IT Madras. I had no idea about the place. Only once. So traveling was also not was not being done by the
Mm,
family as such a lot. So only for interviews and examinations once in a while we came out and did this. So for the first time when I came to IIT Madras, that was for the interview with my mother, and she liked the place a lot. Though we came in sometime, I think it was very hot.
hot
Okay.
summer. Now, any time in Chennai is the same.
So Chennai is only hot, hotter, hottest. There is no
Hotter,
other weather
exactly.
in Chennai. So I don't know whether it was hot or hotter or hottest, but one of them.
Okay.
And I was not very convinced with the whole this thing, the weather and everything. But she said, "Okay, go ahead, do it. Weather and all is part of this thing. If you start doing it, you'll get adjusted." So I went there and talked to Sunil. Sunil is a very gem of a person, I would say, a
Mm, mm,
fantastic
yeah,
person, and
absolutely.
he knew that I have no background of computation.
Mm,
Okay, some numerical method course that I have done, maybe couple of lines of code, maybe I would have written, but I had no idea. But he was very positive. He said, "Snigdha, if you want to learn something, there is no barrier, right?
mm,
PhD is a 5 years time, and
mm,
if you put your effort, you will be able to pick up things very quickly." And he was very supportive, very positive. He says, "If you want to do it, we can do it. We can do it together." And that gave me again a confidence. You need somebody to push confidence in you, right?
positive.
And he is one of them. He's superb that way. He can always pull you out from any moment. So that's and then so in again in when I went for interview, there were a couple of people whom I went and talked to. Experimentalists were also in my list.
Mm, mm,
And some and you're always excited about superconductor. That was the time
mm,
where people were excited a lot about superconductor. There were people in IIT Madras doing superconductors, and I wanted to join that was also in my list. But somehow,
mm,
after talking to everyone, because and that in a sense it was good, I feel. Nowadays I see students that they're very focused from their third year
okay.
itself, that
Yeah.
I want to just do this. And I think my flexibility helped me to get the
Mm,
best person in at that point of time, and I was flexible. So I was like, I want to work with the person, and area is of course something that should excite me, but I'm
mm.
not very particular about this particular area itself. And then I talked to Sunil. I ended up doing soft condensed matter. So it was really how I
Yeah,
came to.
in that sense, Sunil is also quite remarkable because I think his early research was in optics or something related to the because I think he was a student of G.S. Ranganath
Yes, yes, yes.
and
RRI.
RRI, and it's quite remarkable what he's done after that. Is
Yeah,
very fascinating and very interesting. So,
yeah.
coming to the point, you also mentioned that your mother accompanied you to that particular visit. Uh, Tell us about how did your mother feel? Here is a daughter who actually is now stepping into becoming a PhD scholar. It must be a great moment for her, huh?
Uh, yeah. So again, as I said, PhD was not supposed to be the best thing in my
Mm.
society at that point of time. So but yeah, so my mother was again, my mother father, both of them wanted
Mm,
us, both me and my sister, to do something, and then whatever it takes to do that, they were always supportive for that. Okay. And she accompanied me at various places for various, both of them. We went to many exams together, and sometimes it
mm,
clicked, sometimes it didn't click, but she was always supportive. She When she came to IIT Madras, this I think this was the first time she was entering into any IIT. Yeah, no, I think IIT Kharagpur also we went together for the interview. So IIT
nice.
Kharagpur and IIT Madras, both of the places. You see, I was after MSc, still I was accompanied by the mother at that point of time. So that's how this was.
Yeah,
And for
that's
my male friends, there was no accompanying mother or father. So, but that was really nice. That was her accompanying things also had a lot of good points to discuss. So Kharagpur was one place which I
Mm,
went to, but somehow IIT Madras was better liked by her
mm, mm.
overall, in terms of the feel, maybe,
Feel, yeah, yeah.
and also for me. And both of us said, okay, let's then go to IIT Madras. And that was as you said, it was a huge transition, not only in terms of the subject, the focus on the research, and but also language.
Yeah, yeah. That's what
You,
it is. Culturally, also, it's quite different from.
quite different, very different.
Yeah.
But those cultural things actually helped me. And let me tell you, those
Mm,
differences
mm,
actually helped me for the personality improvement to a large extent, I would say. The entire group, Sunil's entire group was Malayali speaking group as such,
mm,
not
mm,
really
mm,
research Malayali speaking, but they were. But then, so I was forced to speak in English to everyone,
mm.
right? And that is the time when I got the real confidence
Confidence.
to converse to somebody in English for time that you
Timeless.
so that is the confidence that I got from very beginning of my PhD, and that had helped me a lot as a person, definitely, and of
Fabulous,
course,
fabulous. It's
academic.
so interesting and important, and that is also a good thing about taking up PhD because as you correctly mentioned and as you probably also alluded to in the conversation you had, it's a long term process, right? Because you many a times, especially in this time and age, a lot of things people want it at a very short kind of a duration, Whereas it is a unique kind of a training you get, intellectual training you get, where foundations, what you are laying there, if done properly, it can serve you for your life in that sense.
Absolutely,
A lot
absolutely.
of things. Yeah.
It can make you or break you at that
Hmm.
it has, because you are at the point of a career where you have already spent quite a lot of time in academics, right? And now if you are somebody is not able to do well, or if somebody has to leave, let's say PhD after 3.5 years, 4 years, right? Then the career option also jeopardizes, right?
Yeah.
So that is
Absolutely.
something one has to be very careful about. And I think that's the reason people say, and I also said at that point of
Hmm.
time, that PhD is stressful. And whenever the students come and talk to me nowadays for PhD, the first thing that I tell them, that it is stressful, and if you are a kind of person who can take stress, then only
Hmm.
you come for that,
You can,
otherwise
right.
don't come for that. Because halfway down the line you will feel that this is too much stressful for me and I don't
Uh-huh.
want to do that. You will not only lose that 2.5 year, 3 year, but this, as a whole, you are going to lose much more than just if you would have left after MSc and would have done something else. So yeah,
Absolutely correct.
PhD
Absolutely
is
correct.
something which demands the some confidence and also some dedication. Yeah.
So tell us about that phase of your PhD where you develop interest and also expertise in computational physics. That seems to be a very remarkable transition because you're literally making your bread and butter doing computational physics now. Tell us about it. That will be a very inspiring story for all of us.
So this story again is a very very interesting story, and I will always treasure this story during my entire life. So as I said, I had no clue about computation when I joined Sunil. Okay, I wanted to do more of experiment, let's say, at that point of time.
Oh,
Okay, and Sunil also. Somehow this is a coincidence. Maybe Sunil also at that point of time wanted to do some experiment. Okay,
wow.
and
Okay.
so my PhD story is not computers, entirely computation. That way. So he said, okay, I am interested in doing this experiment. And so this experiment that they were planning to do was on these micellar solution. So there was some very fascinating experiment that had come up in PRL at that point, was the intermittent chaos in the micellar
Yes. Yes.
solution.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that gave me, and he said, this is something that I'm really interested in doing and in going into this field, and we have some project. Would you be interested in doing experiment? I said, wow, I am going to work with a great person, and I don't know computation, but he's offering me to do some experiment. Why not? Let's do that. Okay, so at first year PhD, you don't know anything, right? At that point, I had no clue. So I said, yes, I just jumped into that. I'll do experiment, I said. And of course, he was a theoretician. He didn't have any lab or anything to do the experiment. But he had the collaboration with Abhijit in chemical engineering.
Mm,
So I was supposed to go there and do the experiment. So, but within first year of my PhD, Sunil said, okay, we'll do micelles later,
mm.
but there is one interesting experiment which Pramod Pularkat in RRI,
Workout.
right?
Arrow. Yeah.
So Sunil and Pramod had done PhD more or less at the same time,
Yes.
and
Yes.
during Pramod's PhD time, there was an very interesting experiment which Pramod had initially seen, which was basically a mixture of an isotropic liquid and a liquid crystal, where they saw very interesting dynamics of cell propulsion. Okay, and because that was the end of the PhD, so Pramod left at that point of time. These two people had some discussion, and they said maybe at some point of time we'll start it again. So Sunil told me about this story, and I said, "Do you want to do that?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" Then he said, "But I had no clue about the hurdles that I'm going to face." So, but then Sunil was very supportive. He said, "Okay, then do one thing. Let's you go to a lab which has this facility, which is in RRI." So Professor
Mm,
Madhusudana was there in that at that time. Okay, and Pramod and Sunil arranged me to go to RRI for 3 months. and he gave me all the instructions about what to do, which mixture to take, what has to be done, and all that. So I went to RRI, and with the help of all these professors. So Pramod at that time had moved to Germany. Sunil was in
Oh,
IIT
okay.
Madras, and
Yeah.
I was in RRI doing experiment with the help of some PhD students and some profs, because Pramod
Right.
had this connection. Okay, and they said if we get some preliminary result, we'll see what to do. I said okay. I was very excited. I went to RRI. I have to go to RRI now. I will stay there for 3 4 months, and I was very excited for that. I did some nice experiments. The experiment was very sweet experiment, I would say, where I had to mix isotopic liquid and a liquid crystal and do this quenching
Mm.
from the mixed state to a demixed state, and had to look under the microscope to see the dynamics and all that. Okay, and again, I could reproduce the initial result that Pramod had in RRI. Okay, and then the point was that we need to now pursue it further.
Further.
Okay.
Okay.
And I came back to IIT after 2 to 3 months, and then the question was how to pursue it further. And then, I mean, I was that way. I would say think that I was lucky because things had worked out for me most of
Mm.
the time, which may you may feel that it may not work out, but it had worked out for me. Then Sunil told me, "Why don't you write that fellowship? Go to
Mm.
Germany, work with Pramod for 6 months, and then finish off this project." I said, "Yeah, wow, fantastic." I wrote, I got. I went to Germany for
Nice.
to do
Nice.
this experiment, and it worked out very well. We published it and all that, and so after 6 months, I came back. Okay, so this must be my 3.5 years. By that time it was done and all that. Okay, and okay,
Wonderful.
so one chapter done.
Mm.
Now the next chapter has to start. So next chapter, for the next chapter I had to bring back my micellar solution, and I brought that micellar solution back. But somehow my micellar solution did not work at all.
Right.
We were doing some experiments, rheology experiments. We were getting some unexplained data which we could not explain properly. So next 6 months or so, I was in a mess because I had no clue how to do the experiment at that point of time because of and also when you go to somebody
Mm.
else's lab, right, you don't get a lab feeling,
Lab
right?
feeling. Yeah,
Then
you're
you
right.
tend to lose a bit at that point
Mm.
of time. So that is the time when I said to Sunil, I'm not doing experiment now. I want to do what you are doing in the lab, sitting here with all other people, and maybe that was my 3.5 or roughly 4 years at that point
Mm.
of time. Okay, then Sunil said, okay, fine, we'll do computation for these living polymers. Okay, using DPD, go read DPD.
Mm.
And while okay, so during my first project also, when I was doing experiment, parallelly I was doing some computation also to be able to do coding and to enable myself to do coding for if required later on. So that
So, did
kind of
you did you take any course for computation, or was it on
uh,
your own? You
on
completely.
on my own, and with a lot of help from my colleagues, from other
Uh,
PhD students in the lab. So lab as in general was very supportive lab. I had
uh,
Ranjit in the lab, Sanoop, and Lakshmi. They were all very supportive people. Ranjit, still I talk to him. I really feel him. He's
mm,
also one of my mentor. Ranjit from IIT
mm,
Bombay. I really
mm,
consider him as one of my mentor still. With him I learned a lot in terms of coding. So and no course as such. If I maybe yeah, maybe I took a numerical method again and did the coding part again there,
mm,
but
mm.
more of from the research point of view I started taking doing things myself. And then when the micellar experiment did not work out, I completely shifted to the
Super.
computational aspect and started doing computation as a whole. Yeah, that's
So,
the PhD story.
from this experience, Snigdha, what is your general notion of people who want to start, let's say, computational research, especially for students, if they're really starting at a level of even, let's say, PhD? Uh, I know things have changed a lot in terms of the resources, etc. But also the mindset and training is equally important. Given that you also have very nice viewpoint, and we'll come to your research also in a few minutes. But what is your general thought process? How should a student orient themselves, let's say, who want to get into computation? Because I've also seen so many of our colleagues, even in my own lab, sometimes we corroborate our experiments with some numerical simulations and other things. It's become very integral part of research,
Yeah.
asking questions. In fact, sometimes you can do better experiments on a computer than in a laboratory for various different things. With this kind of experience, and especially at a student level, what is your advice? What kind of stuff students should actually look into it? I'm particularly asking this because you also have very close connection to experiments. Some of the work, what I have seen from your group, has very deep connection to experiments. In
Yeah.
many times, sometimes it's very disconnected.
Hmm.
I'm not kind of, anyway, kind of putting it down, because there are some cases where you have to go a little very far away and do abstraction. But in your case, I also see that there is a nice semblance with experiments. Could you please tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as far as computation or simulations are concerned, the idea of simulation again is, of course, you have to be in close connection with the experiment, but at the same time, what will happen at the extreme conditions which you cannot achieve in the lab, okay, is also a good point of view to look at from the computation side. So that way I feel both aspects are important. Having a close connection with the experiment where you see the experimental some observations and try to explain it with more insight, which you may not be able to get it from the experiment. And also asking the experimentalists or collaborating with them and pushing them to do experiments which is beyond the scope right now, or more being more innovative in some sense, and you assure that okay, this is what you will get, is another good aspect of simulation which I always felt. Now, coming to the point of students, how to motivate them, or how to what should they expect, what should they know, what they about their preparedness and all that.
Hmm.
Well, from in the physics department, I'm sure this is the story many at many places. The students, when they come for PhD, especially from universities which don't have a lot of exposure to the students, right? So we
Hmm.
get students from various universities who are coming for PhDs, right? So many a times they are not aware of this aspect of research through computation, right? Mostly they are aware of some condensed matter experiments that is being done. They are of course aware of high energy experiments, okay, those things they are aware of. But this computational aspects of the research is something most of the time they are not aware of. And
True. True.
since they are not aware of it, they are not also prepared for that in
Hmm.
terms of learning the coding or getting an hands on or something like that. So I tell the students at that point of time that if you are interested, if you have a logical mindset, then you should go for this. You
Go
can
for
go
it.
for this if you want to go for this. I myself is an example, right? I had no clue about the coding, and I've been doing coding
Hmm.
for now some time. So I give my example to them, and in fact, I have had students so far in my group, right? Some of them who know new programming well in advance when they came. So, for example, my first student, she was from IIT Guwahati. Okay, and she knew all these things very well. She knew what soft matter is. She knew the coding, so she was well aware type of student. The second student was from Kumayi University.
Hmm.
She had no clue about what kind of research has been done are being done in soft matter. What for that matter, what is soft matter? What is
Hmm.
biophysics? How come computation can come handy to you for this? Right? She had no clue, but she was passionate. She was hardworking. She was dedicated, and that I think is the key in research. I think any area for that matter.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, you may get
Absolutely.
some edge. You may get some edge if you have the tools with you. If you have to prepare the tool there, you may
Hmm.
have little edge. You may perform, maybe you may publish two papers less, but at the end of the day, if you are into this, you will be able to pick up. And
You were
I think that's
absolutely correct.
the key point of research. That's my opinion.
Fabulous, fabulous. In this particular case, in your case, so what was the languages you got exposed to at earlier
Okay.
stage? And
So during my PhD, I got exposed to, definitely Fortran was the language
Fortran,
which was
yeah,
being
yeah.
used in the group at that time. So Fortran is something that I extensively used at that point of time, and then I picked up C. Once you know one language,
Yeah.
then it's not very difficult to get into other language. So C and Fortran was my bread and butter till I joined IISER Bhopal. And when I joined IISER Bhopal, and then student had to teach students, right? And now students don't talk anything less than Python. So I have to teach Python. So I have to read Python. So now I have learned Python as well. So these
Fantastic,
are
fantastic.
the three things because you have to be updated with the students, right?
Obvious, yeah,
Nowadays, if I
absolutely.
tell students do this coding in Fortran, they would not do. Okay, they will come and say, I know Python, and Python can do everything, and therefore I'll do it.
Everything, yeah.
So now, when they say that, then I tell them, okay, let's do some research problem in Python, and then they
Hmm.
realize, okay, Python may not be the best language to use all
Hmm.
the time. Okay, depending on what kind of problem that you are taking, you may have to come to a lower level program, then a higher level program like
Okay.
Python because of computational
Come,
challenges and all that.
challenge.
So this is something students also evolve, and I think we also will have to evolve with time. So right now, I think three languages where I'm comfortable with are Fortran, C, and Python. But then, of course, in my numerical method course or computational physics course, there are students who will do coding in Java, and I'm supposed to correct that, and then I have to go back and look in Java all the syntax and everything, and then I learned that also a bit over the time.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's really an important kind of overview for a lot of people who want to get started and also do researches. Mainly, students have, as you mentioned, very preconceived notions sometimes, and their exposure to many interesting questions are post
Limit.
facto. When they
Mm.
see things, and then they'll
Mm.
realize that there are
Yeah.
many interesting things. So, now that you're finishing your PhD, going back to your chronology in terms of what we are discussing, so you finished your PhD when, and what was your next step?
Okay, so my PhD got over in 2009,
Hmm,
uh, sometime in May or June,
hmm.
something like that, and then I had to go for postdoc, of course. Now, by the time I was married,
Oh,
and
okay, okay. Hmm.
yeah, so I got married maybe in 2007. I should not fumble here. Usually men fumble here. So yeah. So 2007 is when I got married, and then my husband, I knew him from BHU time, and he was in doing PhD in IIT Bombay. So he had finished his PhD in 2008, sometime about 7 months before me, and he was in Toronto, in University of Toronto, right? And you know again my personal stuff came into picture, and then I was very sure that if I have to go for postdoc, I am going to go to Canada, and I'm going to look for postdoc near Toronto. And of course, as a supervisor, Sunil did not like this decision, and Sunil kept persisting, saying that, Snigdha, you will get good postdoc places as well. Keep your mind open. And I had
Hmm.
my mind closed at that point of time. That closed my mind. After submitting my thesis, I went to Canada,
Hmm,
uh,
hmm.
with the aim that I will search for the postdoc. And when I went to Canada, I had nothing in my hand, to tell you the
Oh,
truth.
okay, okay. Hmm,
I just went there because Vishal was there, and I wanted to
hmm.
stay with him for some time. But again, thank God, I had good luck. Within 2 months, I got the postdoc is one of the best groups in Raymond Kapral's group.
Fantastic.
That also had worked out very well for me. I first time when I went to see Kapral, I wrote to him. I was in Canada. I wrote to him that this is what my CV is, I would
mm,
like to meet you. I am looking for postdoc position, and I would like to meet you if you have position and all that. So he wrote back to me saying that your CV is very good. I am looking for
mm.
person like that. However, I don't have a position right now, but you should meet me. Okay, you
Good,
come and meet
good.
me. So I went and met him, and there was no interviews as such, but a
Mm,
general discussion about what I know, what I don't know, and all that. Very informal, nice discussion.
mm,
Again, I was lucky him here to get Kapral as a mentor.
mm.
Superb person,
Yeah.
just like Sunil. Very different people, though. Very different people in terms of their personality, but
Mm,
overall, again, a very nice person. So he said again, Snigdha, right now I don't have position as I told you over email, but if I get anything, keep in touch. If I get
mm,
anything, I'll tell you. Meanwhile, you can go and meet this people. Okay, and I thought, okay, I will meet others as well, and then I started looking for other universities nearby Toronto as well. Couple of places I went and talked, and then they said they will have opening in a month or so. So by the time I think 3 months had gone, and then I had to come back for my thesis defense. So when I was in India in thesis defense, that time I got an email from Kapral saying that luckily I have got a position, I have got a grant, and I have a position. If you are still interested and available, come and meet me. I was superb happy. So
fantastic.
finished my
Fantastic.
finished my this thing Viva was and went back, joined Kapral's group as a postdoc. So that's why I would say that there's a luck factor which had worked out for me, and I'm really thankful for that. And because it wouldn't have happened, then I would have to spend some time in Toronto. I would have realized that okay, this is not what I'm going to. I would have done something definitely because I wanted to do something definitely. But it worked out very well for me, and we were there. I was there in Kapral's lab, so that is when I got exposed to more of out of equilibrium system.
Mm,
So in
mm,
Sunil's lab, I was mostly during my PhD. I was mostly doing, as I said, experiment is something that I did, and then living polymers, micer solution. Those are the things. So basically, equilibrium systems are something that
mm,
I was
mm,
I was doing in Sunil's group, and then once I went to Kapral's group, then that's where out of equilibrium system,
mm.
active matter was just picking up at that point of
Speaking,
time.
yeah.
Kapral was one of the pioneering person in this area. So, and he had him and then couple of experimentalists. They were doing these things together. So I got just jumped into the problem at that point of time with him, and it worked out really well. Again,
Yeah,
there.
in fact, some of the earliest papers, actually, even before active matter became a buzzword, I think you were already at it on that particular problem. For example, this collective dynamics, especially in the dimer
Yeah,
configuration,
yeah, yeah.
even long ago when I was searching for some paper, I also had stumbled upon this very interesting work. Of course, I don't directly work on that, but even to understand some things which I wanted to learn a little bit. There are so many interesting things because I also know that Efron actually has also written books. Some
Hmm.
of the very good chemical waves, I think, is an edited
Yeah,
book on
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
also patterns and the
He
other
was
books.
basically a non-equilibrium pattern for,
Non-equilibrium.
person.
Yeah.
Right? Pattern formation was his forte
Forte,
most of
yeah,
the
yeah.
time, right? And then they developed this technique, this multi-particle collision dynamics, which is now well appreciated by the community, and many people across the globe are working on that technique that he had worked on. And then around that time, around 2007 6, this bimetallic genus particle had started. The experiment had happened in Ashmansen's group and others group, and
Mm,
also at that time Toronto there were people who were working on genus particle. So before I joined, there was another postdoc with Kapral, with whom he had developed this genus particle model, and tried to have some correlation with the experiment. And then when I joined, I took that work further, talked about multiple dimers, then talked about
mm.
collective dynamics of these genus particles, then talked about its interaction with the chemical wave, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So that's where I got into the active matter, and I
Mm,
continue
mm.
to be in active matter right now. Yeah, so recently I'm moving towards more bio, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We'll come to that. We'll come to your research interest in a few minutes. So now you spent quite a bit of time. You and Vishal, both of you were at the same time in the same place, or you had slightly different timelines in Canada? Or
No, so so Vishal joined about 6 7 months before me,
yeah,
and
before that, I should tell our listeners, Vishal is actually a fantastic chemistry professor also at IISER Bhopal. In fact, I hope that I'll also have a conversation with him at some point of time. And I should just mention this because we are just talking about Vishal without even telling about him. But yeah, just for the information.
sure. So yeah, he would be happy to come, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he joined University of Toronto again with a fantastic person, Professor Andre, and he joined 7 8 months before me, and that was the time when ISIS were coming, right?
Mm.
So at that time, around the time, same time when he was joining or just joined, something like that, Professor Singh, VK Singh, had offered him the position. So he said, but then he said, "Sir, I want to give some time for postdoc. I want to do some postdoc, get some experience, and then maybe I'll come back." So he was there for 6 7 months before me, and then I joined. Then we were there. Both of us were in University of Toronto. In
Mm.
fact, Professor Kapral is with whom I was doing my postdoc.
Mm.
Is a professor in chemistry, not in physics, by the way.
Physics, yeah. The chemical engineer, right? You're a chemical engineer
He's
in
a physical chemist, basically.
physical. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
He
nice,
was
nice,
in
nice,
Department of Chemistry, though he
nice.
does whatever all the physicists do, because science
Yeah,
is so interdisciplinary
yeah.
that we do. So he was also in the Department of Chemistry. So I joined as a postdoc in Department of Chemistry. So
Nice.
both of us were there in Department of Chemistry, in the same building also. And so, and then we were there till 2011 May. Yeah, something
Mm.
around that time. Yeah, so we were there for the same time, and then both of us moved back to IISER Bhopal at the same time. So again,
Fantastic,
worked
fantastic.
out very well for me.
This
Somehow,
was in
somehow.
which year? Which year? Which year you moved back to India?
2011
Yeah.
is when I moved back to
So,
high school.
Snigdha, tell us. This is an important kind of a junction. Tell us why did you people come back? Why did you people decide to come back?
Okay, so for
Because I'm very sure if you really wanted to make it there and stay back, I think you would have had some of the other opportunities too. Uh,
yeah, so if I would have stayed back for a couple of more years, definitely I would have had some
yeah.
opportunities. Both of us, in fact,
Mm,
Vishal would have
mm,
also got some opportunities there, definitely. But Vishal had this offer, as I said,
mm,
before going itself. And more than that, he is more of a patriotic person than me. I am also very patriotic, let me tell you. That disclaimer I should definitely have. But he is much more than me, and he, before going itself, he was very particular that I have to come back. And as you would have noticed from very beginning, that I am was more of a materialistic person that
mm,
way. So I was in dual mind whether to come back or stay there. But he was very sure that he has to come back. So then he got the job, and that time my daughter was also like 3 4 months. She was
mm.
born there itself, so she was 3 4 months, and staying there alone, and then being able to do everything alone there, was, I found it bit more challenging. uh, I mean, Vishal would have come back, and if I would have stayed there for a couple of more years also,
Mm.
if I had the position, I had everything. But then, as I said, my luck again worked out in favor of me, and I got the position here as well. I thought, okay, let's move back. So that's how we I moved back here to Bhopal. That's
Fabulous,
a
fabulous.
good junction. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful to know. So, how was that transition? Like, again, Toronto is a very different place from Bhopal. How was the transition now that you're also a newly, a newish mother, I suppose, 4 months,
Yeah.
5 months,
Yeah.
very, very challenging times. because it's not an easy phase for anybody to
Yeah.
even just be as it is, but to do a
Yeah.
transition, it's even harder, I suppose. Yeah.
That transition was hard transition, let me tell you very frankly. That was a
Mm,
very, very hard transition, and that transition is bound to be hard. Is And we had I knew that I have to cope up with that, okay, because I'm a kind of person that I I mean, if I have thought of doing something, I'll do it.
mm,
So I knew that this is going to be hard, but I knew that I have to cope up with this. Uh, IISER Bhopal being new institution, I was, as you said, the initial, I was the fourth or fifth faculty member in the department. At that time, not many faculty members were
mm.
there in the department. Forget about female faculty members. I think I was the first female faculty member to have a kid. Before me, whoever had joined, there were three, four faculty females had joined in the department, but I mean other departments, but they were not having the kids. So I was the first one who had come here with 5 months old baby, and there was no crash facility. Uh, Institute was running in a transit campus. Housing was somewhere in the middle of the city. No crash. Didn't know anyone in the city. I have no we don't have any family members in Bhopal.
Mm,
Uh,
mm.
for some time, thankfully, for 6 months, my mother-in-law came and stayed with us. But that will not be the permanent solution that we
Yeah.
knew. She could come with us. She could stay with us for 6 months. And before that, in Toronto, my mother had come, and mother and father both had come. They had stayed with us. So Toronto part was taken care of very well. Now here was the challenge because no crash facility and all that was there. So she came for some time, and then we started looking for uh, crash facility. But believe me, Bhopal private crash facilities are something that I could not believe. So
Mm,
then we started looking for some help, house help.
mm,
And good point about Bhopal city is people here are very good.
mm,
You can trust people. I was again very nice people whom I got to take care of my daughter. And after 6 months my mother-in-law left, and then we got a crash also when she was 1.5 year, my daughter was 1.5 year or so. uh, but in that duration I got a very good help from the city. As a whole, city has very good people that way. So I was again. I have been saying that at different point of time, you somehow tend to get good people around you, and I kept getting that way. So it worked out
Fabulous.
very well. And once the crash facility started for the camp institute, my daughter was one of the first person to go to IISER Bhopal crash, and we established the crash. And Professor Singh, again, I must thank him for that, this official platform, along with his wife, Mrs.
Mm,
Anjali Singh. Both of them worked really hard to get the crash facility established, because they knew that this is right now couple of kids, but more and more kids are going to come. And they were prompt in setting up the facility, giving all the help that institute can give at that point of time. And there were some faculty members wife at that point of time, because it was very ad hoc,
oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Institute had not come up. You had to rent a house
Mm,
somewhere in the city and run the crash, right? You cannot really appoint somebody whom you don't know to run the crash facility. So the faculty's wife who came forward and helped the help to us, offer the help to us, and that really made the
right.
transition
Yes.
within 1 year very smooth. So I could now concentrate on the research and other aspects of teaching and everything.
Absolutely. In fact, see, I think uh, many of us would have not been able to work without a crash facility. I can vouch
Of course.
150% if that all it's mathematically correct or not. But I don't think people. Of course, now there's a very good realization
Yeah.
across the board everywhere, because I think that is one of the fundamental aspects of building an institution. I suppose
Yeah.
to have some kind of facilitation for childcare. In fact, that's
Yeah,
so important.
that's
So
extremely important. And bigger cities like Mumbai, Pune,
mm.
that is, these facilities have been there for some time.
Therefore, yeah, yeah.
Okay, but smaller cities like Bhopal, these facilities are not there in the city. Okay, so institutions now will have to come forward,
To come forward.
and that progressive thinking of the institution to accommodate people to have that kind of facility so that everybody can work very peacefully is very, very, very important. And this
Okay.
IISER facility not only helped IISER kids, our IISER faculty, but also our neighboring institutions, right? We have
Yes.
SPA there as
Yeah.
our neighbor. Many of
Mm.
the faculty's kids from SPA came there, and then
Mm.
they also had a peaceful. So if we are peaceful, then only we'll be able to work. And institutions are realizing that. That's very, very, very good. And I hope in future things will improve a lot.
Yeah. Glad that you brought this particular point. In fact, that's so crucial for anybody. It doesn't matter what is the kind of facilitation. It actually even caters to some kind of employment too. Many a times within the institution, I've seen so many people do benefit out of it, having some
Mhm.
kind of a thing. It's a goodwill. You can see the rapport even among kids, and also
Yeah,
between kids and the people who take care of them. That bonding is
yeah.
very strong, right?
Yeah,
That will
very
never
strong,
go away.
very strong, very strong. Yeah,
True,
that
true.
way it was very, very good transition, I would say. Smooth
Fabulous,
transition.
fabulous.
So that, yeah, worked out very
So
well.
now we'll make a transition also to your research interests and also some of the leadership roles you have taken. In fact, that is something I want to specifically talk about because that is something really remarkable. Because not only doing good science, but you also led the department and also done very good stuff for the institution. I first want to just talk a little bit about your research interests, what you've been doing, what is your group doing. Tell us a little bit about that
Okay.
particular point.
Okay, so as I was saying about the active matter, so our research group is working on different aspects of active matter. So, like couple of years back, 3 4 years back, we were working on mostly the colloidal system as a model for the active matter system, right? So you have these genus particles, which has some inbuilt mechanism, phoretic mechanism, with which they will be able to propel, right? The question that we were asking, as you said, how they are going to behave when they are alone, how they are going to behave when they are in collection, and why do they behave so beautifully when they are in collection, what causes that swarming effect, what causes that collective effect. Those were the questions that we were asking, and of course there are different variations of that will happen, that if you change the shape, size, blah
Mm.
blah blah, then how it is going to behave. So that's one aspect of active matter that we were looking for. The recent aspect, then we started also looking at filaments, right? Active filaments, which is where we have many of them are there in biology. For example, the cilia that we have on the cell body, or the flagella, these are filamental object which has activity on it, right? So we can, then we worked on these active polymers, right? So for example, the work that we did on active polymers, especially keeping cilia in mind, was the question that we asked is, how does the cilia synchronize? So the cilia on the cell body has this metachronal wave, right? They all synchronize, oscillate, beat together, right? So what causes that synchronization was the question that we were asking. Is it hydrodynamic interaction between them, or some signaling, chemical signaling? So those are the kinds of questions that we were asking. Very recently now I'm trying to go towards, again, and within the active polymer purview, try to learn more towards, go to more towards chromatin, which is again a very, very, very interesting
Interesting. Yeah.
aspect that is there, right? We have these meter long DNA chromatin, which is bound and put it in the cell in a very small tiny space, and still it is able to open up whenever required for the transcription and all that. Again, these are polymers, right? At the end of the day, these are polymers which are bound on these nucleosomes, these proteins, right? And
Mm.
makes this combined structures. Now again, you have activity there, you have enzymes there, which imparts activity. So it's some way it is some sort of an active polymer. Again, there are different types of enzyme, different classes of enzyme, which either works on it and provides one type of forces, or there are a family of enzymes which slides the nucleosome to open up the DNA, right? So now very recently we have been interested in modeling these chromatin and understanding what are the roles, or what is the mechanism with which these different families of motors might work, right? So if I have these compact chromatin having different segments, some has activity, some doesn't have activity, how does this compaction will take place? Now if you have enzyme 1 versus enzyme 2, what is it that how it is going to behave differently? Now again, this is something which is not known. There are a lot of
Mm,
hypotheses on different enzyme that it works this way, right? For example, RNA polymerase, it works on the polymer. There are different class of enzymes which exerts a force which may be curvature dependent, and there's some kind of forces which compresses the chromatin. So there is a plethora of enzymes for which action is microscopic action is unknown, and there are
mm.
experiments which hints on few things. So this is where we are trying to now. Very recently we have got very interested in understanding enzyme, this chromatin dynamics, trying to model different types of enzymes, different family of enzymes, different types of forces, and see how they would impact the overall chromatin condensation or dynamics. So that's the recent path that we are taking, in the most recent path that we are taking, right? And maybe soon you will get see a paper also along that line from the maybe the
Fabulous.
first paper on the chromatin is something
Dramatic.
that we
Yeah.
have soon. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
it's a very very interesting area because looking at biology from a physics viewpoint has always been of interest to physicists, but there
yeah.
is now a new impetus altogether, right? Because there's a lot of kind of push nowadays to look at this in slightly
Correct.
greater detail, and
Correct.
there are now tools and also interests which has really risen
Interest
up.
tools and a lot of talking between biologists and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
physicists, which is happening, and that I think will open up a completely new era for biophysics, because earlier also biophysics has been there for a long time, but now institutions like us or IITs in India, also there's a lot of talking that is happening between us.
Mm, yeah.
That will definitely help. So I had no idea, I was working on these active polymers, but I was using the type of forces which I was having cilia flagella in my mind, and I was using those kind of forces. And then I talked to some of the biologists, and then they said, okay, this is something that may also happen in chromatin, why don't you explore? And then I started reading chromatin literature, and I said, okay, there's a hell lot of scope here which I can explore, and do something really interesting, more towards biology. And that's how I
Mm.
am right now. I'm jumping onto that area. That's
Fabulous, fabulous, fantastic. In fact, that's one of the very fascinating things about soft condensed matter physics, because there is no dearth of
that's the problem.
systems, right? In terms of variety of systems, what you can grasp and look
Yeah,
into,
correct,
everything in around your environment actually is some or the other kind of soft matter system in that sense.
correct,
So,
right.
including biological systems, of
Yeah,
course.
including biological system, right? It's just that as I said, talking and understanding each other's language is the hurdle.
Mm.
The language that biologists will use is something which I won't, as a physicist, I won't be able to understand, and the language that I will use, they won't be able to understand. For example, and to bridge that gap, more talking has to happen, and that I think has started happening, because they will say, okay, I'll put this enzyme and this is the dynamic that I say. My point would be, okay, if you put this enzyme, what kind of force does it exert on the polymer, right? And then will it, so that is not interesting to them. Maybe for them the
Yeah.
interest would be a family of enzyme, and how, what effect they will bring, and how the effect is going to come is our purview, right? And then maybe with lot of discussion, lot of talking, this will again, it will enlighten me definitely,
Mm.
and I hope with my studies I'll be able to help out the area a bit.
Fabulous, fabulous. So we'll now move the discussion and widen the scope a little bit, in terms of some of the responsibilities you have taken up, which is very important. A lot of people should kind of also know about that. You also headed the Department of Physics at IISER Bhopal, and also you've been dean, and in the capacity of both dean and head of the department, you've done quite a lot of stuff for the institution, and also brought in programs and other things. What motivated you, Snigdha, to take up leadership? And because I'm going to also expand this into one, women in science, and second is women in physics, because that is something which has become a very, very important point of discussion, which we have to discuss going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you would agree with me that new institutions like IISER, you don't take leadership positions by choice, but you have to take it.
True, true.
People to run the new institutions, and
Yeah.
who will run the new institution? You yourself, it's your institution, you are going to run it, right? So it's not that it is your choice. Professor Singh had given some responsibilities. So responsibilities, administrative responsibilities at different capacities, was with many of us from very beginning,
Mm.
starting from wardenship, right? You come to the campus and then you become a warden, right? And then to building management, right? So all the buildings, for that matter, when we joined the institution, the new campus did not have a single building. All the buildings had come in front of us, right? And then all of us were made in charge of one of the buildings, right? So we had to talk to, and our founder director, Professor Singh, was very particular about everything, right? So if you have been made in charge for certain buildings, you have to know each and every thing out of that building, right? So I was in charge of the guest house, from its first brick. So I had to know at what height the switch is coming, what is the length of the slab, what is from where we are procuring the chairs, from where we are doing this. So every year, what color the walls would be, what is the color of the curtain, everything that we had to do. And that was not by choice. I think that is because we cared for the institution. That is because we were one of the early people in the institution, and that I think is a privilege, I would say. Okay, and that privilege, it was a lot of work, definitely, but all the earlier people, I think you would agree with Pune also, all the
Yeah,
earlier
yeah.
people in Bhopal, the kind of affection that we have for our institute, for the buildings, for everything is lacking, will lack, of course, will lack for the newer people because
Yeah.
they have not seen it coming from the scratch. And
It's
many a
literally
times,
like a baby coming up. Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And many a times you're doing it by yourself, right?
Myself,
I
yes.
still remember the guest house had to be completed because of an ENSA meeting. I was in charge,
Yeah.
and the wall painting had to be done a day before Diwali. And I was doing some Diwali cleaning at my home, and I got a call from Professor Singh, Snigdha, where are you? The painter has come. And then I immediately rushed. So you prioritize. By our priority there that time was institution, not my home, at any point of time. And that is because of being some of the early faculty members. And this attachment to the institution had given me this opportunity, and also because of that I could not say no to any of the opportunities that were given to me. Even I knew that at this stage it was going to be detrimental to my research, and it turned out to be at some point of time, because we were just establishing our research group at that point of time, and a lot of time has it goes into administration, especially during the COVID time. I would definitely
Mm.
like to
Yeah.
mention I was the dean academics at that point of time. Dean academics during the COVID time is the worst thing to be.
Man, yeah, true, true.
But yeah, we could pull off because many of our faculty members, and students to also some extent, they cooperated really well. So leadership is one thing, but as a whole, having an institution feeling, which I think we have for many people, we have that because we have built the institution, and therefore we love doing things for the institution. And I think that is what made me take up these positions, because I would like to do anything for the institution. Even now, even if somebody will tell me to do even a smaller thing,
Mm.
it's not necessary for me to take a big position for the institute. As far as the institute work is concerned, I can take any small positions. Even if I have to serve in a committee for the betterment of the institute, I would love to do that. I've still put that over my research and my personal stuff, even now after so many years in IISER Bhopal. So that's the kind of attachment that I have with IISER Bhopal, and because of this, I have been taking. I have took some leadership, some positions here, and it had
Yeah,
worked out
it's an
pretty well.
important commitment, because it's one is, of course, you would want to actually help build the institution. You also kind of have that attachment, generally, as you mentioned very correctly. uh, Even in the Pune case, for example, we have also, there are so many interesting stories, because there is so many. It might actually be small and sometimes even a little larger. People have stood in line to get gas cylinders to
Yeah,
long ago,
yeah,
for credit for the
exactly.
hostel when things were actually just in the initial stage.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
we have taken people kind of from one place to another, because you have
Yeah,
the different campuses
yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah.
these things. Yeah,
First time I still remember the hostel. The hostel was the first entity to be moved inside the. Of course, there was CIF building which came in the beginning, and then hostel came. Okay, and hostel 2013. This is 2013. I
mm,
will never forget that night, because next day, 1st of August, the students were supposed to come to the campus. Okay, I was warden, and with me some more warden and the acting dosa, the dosa at that time, which we called
mm.
kosa
Kosa,
coordinator.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Same here, same here.
Right. We were all here till I think 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock at night, making sure that the water comes to the hostel, because next day morning admission was there, and student we were supposed to allot the hostel to the student. Okay, and the roads
Absolutely.
had not come out very well. Still, there were a lot of bugs. There was only one hostel which had to be bifurcated to boys and girls hostel.
Yes.
All those things, and we enjoyed that. To tell you the truth, those were the times, because five or six of us were there. We're doing it together, right? We will come to the main campus every day from the city, which is like
City.
25 kilometers,
Mm,
watch what is happening. Then whatever we could do, we had to instruct the CPW
mm.
IWD at that point. This is what is lacking. We will go and check each and every room. All sorts of stuff which you would never imagine a researcher doing. We have done that. So that will
No, no,
definitely.
fabulous. No, same here. I kind of telling it jokingly, but it is kind of serious. Before I got the lab space, I was the warden. I became a warden in Mysore, Pune, and that
Same.
continued like for 7, 8 years, because we did not have any specific kind of also hierarchies and coming into
Yeah,
picture.
yeah,
And there
yeah,
are so many things which we'll also have to look into. It's a great thing, because it's a smaller institution.
yeah.
In fact, literally, you're having your faculty meeting in a tea shop. At some point of time, it was such a small kind of
Yeah.
a place. Yeah, those memories will never
Yeah,
be kind of
exactly.
erased.
Yeah, those memories are, and I think that brings up a lot of attachment for the
Attached.
institution,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
anyone, and that had motivated me, or that had helped me taking up these positions, and it worked out pretty well also.
fabulous, fabulous. I
Yeah.
just to widen the scope a little bit, and for a specific thing is, this issue of women in science is an important thing, and also the women in physics, especially. There has been also a lot of interest, and also now a lot of assessment being made in so-called STEM, in the representation of women in various different branches of science. And recently, also some particular kind of analysis has been done, where it has been found that the biology, of course, has a reasonably good representation, about 26%. Physics is roughly probably around 18% or 13%. I don't know the exact number. It's a very small number.
Around
Nothing.
15, yes, between
Uh,
10 to 15%.
exactly. Between 10 to 15, that is the probably the number, which means that really there is a lot of scope for further kind of expansion. Uh, can you tell us about some thoughts on this? How do we go about doing it? Because I, I'm particularly asking because we both are in physics departments, but this is a general kind of worry across all departments too. How do we kind of address any specific thoughts on this? It would be great.
Yeah. So for that, I think first of all, thinking along that line, that has happened very recently. Okay, that is important. So once you will start thinking along that line, you will start thinking about the solution also, and
mm,
thinking
mm,
along that line not only from women faculty members. I think more important here would be thinking along that line from the male perspective, from the male
mm.
faculty member is very, very, very important.
Important.
And because how many female head of the department you have seen in the physics department, or how many head of the institution you have seen in the physics department? Not very little, very, very, very little,
Very,
right?
very. That's what actually,
If
you are actually an exception than a norm in that sense.
so people like us just thinking about it will not change anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so people like you thinking about it will change thing a lot actually. Okay, and I see that people are thinking about it. That's very important. Also, we have to think of why this numbers are decreasing at the faculty level and all that. See, PhD student level right now, if you see the PhD student level, there are a lot of good students right now in your institution or
Mm.
in my institution as well. It may not be a 50-50 ratio, but definitely it's 30% of the total PhD population, 25 to 30% of PhD population is female, right? So the drop actually happens after that, and
After
then
that, yeah.
after that. So, and the drop, why it happens after that is because many a times, this happened in my case as well. That is the time when many of these kids or research students or postdoc, they go into the maternity regime many a times. Okay, and when they get into the maternity regime, that's a difficult time for one. I'm sure you know
Mm,
that.
mm,
uh,
yeah.
uh, that's a very difficult time for the female to be able to cope up with the research as well as with your home with the same efficiency is just not possible. So
Because,
what
yeah.
happens, and I have seen that as a head during the hiring process,
Mm, mm.
we know that after post PhD, the candidate had excellent record.
The record, yes,
During
yes.
postdoc, the candidate had got some reduction in the record, okay, but not a bad record,
Mm,
okay.
mm,
But then the candidate was at the same place for like 4 years, and that goes against
mm,
the candidate.
mm, mm,
That's a mindset, I would say. That's a mindset that I have to come out of. I have to say this 35 years for everyone, okay, for hiring
mm.
may work very well for
Well,
everyone, for male members, but female who have taken a break, let's say of 1 year, have giving the same thing, same standard, and say everything same, may make this bit disadvantageous,
disadvantage.
right? And this has happened just in, I was frustrated because I was the head of the department at that point of time. The candidate was so good, and the
Mm,
questions that are being asked is why the person is at the same place for 4 years. Why do you even care about it? The person was had done very good till postdoc. Why she has not done well
done well.
in the PhD? Why she has not done well in the postdoc? Therefore, no. That's the so that's what I'm trying to come to, that understanding and appreciating, and if for that, even if you have to lower the level a bit,
Mm, mm.
if you want to bring this kind of equality, if you want to increase that, then you have to be more generous. I'm not saying be generous is not the word. I think we have to be more accommodative.
Accommodative, yeah.
Yeah, so accommodative is the correct word, I think, here to such candidates. And I think if we start doing that, uh, the ratio is going to increase. The percentage is going to increase, and I would be really happy that people start thinking along that
Thinking about
direction.
it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely. It's an important point. And also, there is a charter called Hyderabad Charter, which is something I've also referred to in the past episodes in some of the cases, where there has also been a kind of charter made for how to go about looking at this issue from a hiring viewpoint and other things too. Because as you correctly mentioned, there is no dearth of really good people entering into the regime. The fallout happens as they go higher and higher in the position in terms of
Absolutely.
either
Absolutely.
the postdoc or into the faculty positions and
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
It's an
That's
important, very important point.
Yeah.
So, Snigdha, we'll now lighten the conversation a little bit as we also come closer towards the kind of conclusion. One is we're going to discuss a little bit in terms of your mother tongue about your motivation. Of course, you're going to actually tell us a little bit about it, a few sentences, because this is very kind of important, as you know, bringing out also the local languages, vernacular languages, and talking science in those languages is extremely important. And this is one effort I try to make and request my guests to also just put a word across in their mother tongue, because there the connection is much deeper. To be
Huh.
very frank, of course, we extensively use English for our communication in science, but at the end and at the heart, all of us have our mother tongues, which actually is ringing in our hearts and mouths in that sense. So I would
Yeah.
request you to just a few words yeah, about this.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
now the question is,
Mm.
what should I consider my mother tongue as? Okay,
Ah,
that's
that is a question you have to answer and then let us know.
that's a very important question, and I don't know the answer for that because my actually my mother tongue is Mathili,
Oh,
which is
nice.
basically spoken in the northern part of Bihar, which is near Nepal, and that's where my grandfather and everybody had that was from there. So my
Fantastic.
language, actual language, mother tongue should be Mathili, and
Mm.
I should be able to converse with you in Mathili very well.
Mm.
However, being brought up in Jamshedpur, and my mostly my family members
Mm.
being brought up in Jamshedpur, we have mostly spoken in Hindi.
Hindi.
So that's the language I am most comfortable with. So Hindi is what it just comes to me. Mathili will not just come to me. I have to put effort. So
Effort,
when
yeah.
I speak to my grandmother now, and I used to speak to her when I was in Jamshedpur. So that time my Mathili was good. I used to speak a very fluent Mathili at that time with all my grandmothers and some of the aunts. Now that touch is gone, so Mathili doesn't come out very easily to me.
Mm.
What comes out easily to me is Hindi, and that's the language that I have. I think in Hindi, and just when I talk to you, I translate. I think that is what most of the people do. So the mother tongue, if I say, is the language in which you think, then
Mm.
it comes to me as Hindi. और
Hindi, yeah.
हिंदी में तो आप जितना बात करवा सकते हो करवा लो. I have मुझे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है
आप
उसमें.
बोलिए मैडम, आप एक्चुअली बोलिए, आपका मोटिवेशंस और व्हाट इज द रीजन यू बिकेम ए साइंटिस्ट
Uh,
फॉर अ फ्यू मिनट्स.
अच्छा, सो ओके, हिंदी में है तो पूरी हिंदी में बोलने की कोशिश करूंगी. बट आज के टाइम में लोग, समय में लोग अब शुद्ध हिंदी में बोलेंगे तो लोग समझेंगे भी नहीं. और शायद शायद अंग्रेजी भाषा का उसमें आ ही जाएगा, उसमें टच आ ही जाएगा, वो तो आप अवॉइड नहीं कर सकते. तो साइंटिस्ट बनने की मेरी जर्नी बहुत स्वाभाविक रही है. इसके लिए मैंने कुछ अलग से कोशिश नहीं की. मेरी कोशिश हमेशा रही कि जो मैं कर रही हूँ उस टाइम, मैंने हमेशा वर्तमान में जीने की कोशिश की है. वर्तमान में जो मैं कर सकती हूँ, जो मैं सबसे बेहतर कर सकती हूँ, मैंने उस पे कोशिश किया करने को, और समहाउ किसी तरह से वो मुझे लेते गया. मेरी मेरी यात्रा बनते गई, जैसे-जैसे समय गुज़रता गया, जो मैं वर्तमान में कर रही थी, जो मुझे उस समय सबसे अच्छा लगा, वो मैंने करना शुरू किया, और धीरे-धीरे, धीरे करके मैं वहाँ पहुँच गई जहाँ मैं आज हूँ. तो विज्ञान जो मैं करती हूँ, उसको करने के लिए मैंने कुछ अलग से कुछ कोशिश नहीं की. अ, वो आते गया और मैं करती गई. वो समा बनते गया, कारवां चलता गया और मैं चलती गई. वो वही हुआ मेरे साथ, और इस वही करते-करते मैं आज यहाँ पहुँची हूँ. तो आई थिंक
बहुत खूब, बहुत खूब. Fantastic, Singha. It really actually has a deeper connection, at least in my viewpoint, whenever one talks in their mother tongue. Although being in various different places, the concept of mother tongue, as you mentioned, actually gets kind of slightly more broadened. It's also one of the most beautiful aspects of living in India, right? Because you get sampling of cultures and you become part of the culture.
Yeah,
food, lifestyle, etc., etc. Everything
everything,
actually gets evolved that
everything,
way.
everything. And India
Wonderful,
also
wonderful.
become very cosmopolitan now. So that
Yes,
way, there's a lot of mixing that has happened. It's really nice. I think.
wonderful, wonderful. So,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about some recommendations and suggestions you have. How do you relax? Because the work is stressful, I know, because you would actually have to also do a lot of work, not only in research, teaching, but in your case also you have done a lot of admin work. And how do you generally relax? Any kind of art form, books? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so right now my relaxation at this point of time, as I said, मैं वर्तमान में जीती हूँ तो मैं वर्तमान में ही आपको रिलैक्सेशन का
Yeah,
बताऊंगी. पहले
but
कुछ और था, शायद फ्यूचर में कुछ और हो.
all right.
But right now my relaxation is my daughter.
Yeah.
Let me tell you very frankly. I go home. I know. I wait for the evening. I go home. She comes back from the school, and then she has lots to talk. I'm very, of course, as a mother, every parents are attached to the kids. So am
Yeah.
I, and I try to spend as much time with her, and that's my relaxation. Whether going back talking to her about school, what they gave in the breakfast, what she ate in the lunch, what happened with the friend circle, what did teachers say, everything, each and every detail she talks to me, and I love listening to them, giving her my suggestions. So I become a kid with her. So that
Fantastic.
when it
No,
comes
that's
to
that's the amazing part of parenthood, right? Because you literally become one between them and one among them, and
yeah,
that's very true.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is my relaxation. To tell you the truth, with her, doing things with her, even if it's a weekend, if we have to go
Mm.
out and all that, being with her, talking to her, spending time with the family. That's the relaxation that we have,
Relaxing.
and that's very precious.
Absolutely,
Seeing the
absolutely.
workload that you have, so I don't want to miss that. And of course other stuff like movies are something that we watch.
Mm.
I like watching movies. I'm a Bollywood person, dramatic person, you would have guessed it by this time.
No, no, no. It's very fabulous. In fact, it's always great to actually have that kind of a relaxation because scientists do require it. It's a part and parcel of our
Yeah.
working kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's not
It's
only
very.
the intellectual movies that I like watching. I like watching all the kachra movies as well. Uh,
No, it's
so
very important. That's so crucial. What you're mentioning actually is very, very critical.
yeah, yeah. So that's my relaxation after work, and it's fantastic.
Wonderful, wonderful. So before we kind of conclude, any specific future plans you have for next few years? Any specific projects you're thinking about in terms of research, or even any, some personal project or something on the interface of research and something else?
Okay, so of course, the research that I'm doing is one aspect of the future that has to continue and that will continue. The field might differ from,
Hmm.
might go from here to there, and that only time will say. Other than that, there's something that I want to do and I will definitely do at some point of time is because I love teaching,
Hmm.
and teaching aspect of that of my work is something that I enjoy a lot, but teaching only the kids coming to ISERs is something that I don't want to get restricted to. So at some point of time, near future, maybe 4 5 years 6 years down the line, how I don't know, but I would definitely like to go to the villages nearby, and talk to people, teach the kids, bring it to the level which they cannot be at this point of time with their infrastructure. That is something that I would definitely like to do. When, how it will come, that on time will tell. But that's my retirement plan. That when I will retire, I'm not going to sit idle. I'm not going to go to any place, any other institution to teach. Rather, I will sit in Bori village, and by the time I would have established something in Bori village and nearby villages, and would love to interact with the kids, would love to motivate them for the science. Of course, curriculum teaching is one thing, but motivating kids, talking to them, bringing it to the level that they can be, if given the correct path. That is something that's my dream, that I would
Fabulous.
only, hopefully, will I'll pursue soon. Uh,
All the very best for this great initiative. In fact, that's so heartening to actually hear about. That's actually the most important thing, uh, and the most important requirement now in India. To be very frank, in my opinion, to the having science education or any kind of education deeply penetrating into the society, not
yeah,
just only urban society. It's everywhere. It should be actually
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah, I
think the kids we have, they need some sort of encouragement, some motivation, and the path. The बोलते हैं मार्गदर्शक बनना चाहिए.
Mark, yes.
मार्गदर्शन करने की जरूरत है बच्चों को.
Mm.
And there are a lot of initiative from the government side, but I don't know how much I'll be able to go and write the projects and get projects to
Mm.
do all these things. But more than that, I want to do for my personal
Personal,
level, for my
absolutely.
personal happiness. And for that, I may not be going to the government and get big grants to do that. I will do it on my personal level, even if it's 10 kids, 15 kids, 20 kids, 100 kids, I don't mind, but I want to do that at some point of time.
From my own personal kind of initiative, what I've been doing as Pratidhani, which is again purely a personal initiative, single person kind of handling from all the way from editing to kind of creating all
Oh,
the things. I That is always satisfying. In fact, because there
amazing.
the commitment is 100% from your
Yeah,
side,
yeah,
and therefore you would not expect anybody to also pitch in. Neither
yeah,
are you trying to thrust it upon somebody else to want to do it.
absolutely,
Now,
absolutely.
so I think it would actually be a great initiative. In fact, I would wish you all the best, and
Thank you.
I'm very sure you would also get a lot of support for doing that. That is very important.
Yeah, I'm sure I will, because there are many people like me who would like to do it. I just have to, we have to come together and do it.
Um,
But
Absolutely.
some seeding has to happen, and I hope I'll do that seeding. That's my
Great.
dream. Yeah,
Excellent. Excellent. So
yeah.
thanks a lot, Snigdha. This has been an outstanding and wonderful, conversation. And I mean, I'm not surprised, having kind of yeah, conversed with you in the past, and also, having known your work. I'm so glad that we had this particular conversation, and hopefully we'll also continue this conversation because Pratibhani is not one off. It actually is something. It's kind of also turning out to be a small oral history archive, and this all becomes files of the oral histories for future people to also hopefully discuss. If somebody is listening to this after 100 years, please know that people from IISER were doing were trying something.
Yeah, this is a great initiative, and actually, when you start listening, it's really nice. Sometimes very entertaining also.
Yeah,
So
yeah. True, true. In
that's
fact,
it's
there are
an
a few
initiative.
people who have been extremely, also kind of bringing new perspectives, new aspects, and at sufficient depth, every life actually is very interesting. That
Yeah,
is the thing.
absolutely.
That is a lesson during this whole process for me too. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Snigdha. Thank you very much. This
Thank you.
is Pratidhani, where we try to humanize science. This time with one and the only Snigdha Thakur.
Thank you, Pawan.